Hi, thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to give a quick update on the latest developments in EMC standards. So internationally, EMC standards are written by the IEC. And the IEC has a special group called CISPR that is responsible for writing emission standards. It has some immunity groups as well, so TC77 typically write low frequency emission standards. Low frequency, I mean less than 9 kilohertz. And then they also write the immunity standards as well, so whether that's radiated immunity, conducted RF immunity, or any other transient type tests. That's TC77 within IEC. I wanted to focus just on the emission standards for the time being. There's a number of different groups within CISPR, subcommittees as they're called, that write different types of standards. So we have CISPR A, for example, which is responsible for writing the fundamental basic standards like test methods, test instrumentation, calibration requirements, those sorts of things. Just wanted to pull out some of the work that they're doing on high frequency. So of course, we as individuals are buying more and more radio products. That's making the radio waves, if you like, more congested, which is driving more communications to be done at high frequency. We have typically emission standards. So for most consumer industrial products at the moment, we have an upper limit of about 6 gigahertz for emissions testing. Some products it goes to 18 gigahertz, and we've got perfectly adequate test methods and limits for frequencies up to 18 gig. But with the advent of 5G, new radio and specifically millimeter wave, we need to provide protection to the various different companies that have bought that bit of the radio spectrum. So really high frequency, in the sort of tens of gigahertz or so. And so CISPR A is working on new test methods, calibration requirements, test equipment that goes from the range 18 to 40 gigahertz. It might actually be 43.5 gigahertz by the time we've taken all the different 5G millimeter wave bands into consideration. So we're working on that and look out for that because it will become a requirement for many different products in the future. We have CISPR H, which is responsible for setting of limits and also the generic standards. So generic standards are applicable really when there is no product-specific family standard that can be used. And those generic standards are typically residential or domestic, as we used to call them, but household type products, then light industrial, heavy industrial, and then power stations, which have got a unique electromagnetic environment as well. So 4 different types of generic standard that CISPR H are working on. And they're looking to integrate or incorporate additional requirements on a go-forward basis for more low-frequency phenomena, but also on new types of ports. So as we get into more distributed DC systems, for example, low-voltage DC, where you perhaps have got solar panels on the roof of your house where you're generating electricity in DC, and at the moment we have an inverter that converts it to AC, and then we convert it back again to DC to power the products. And so houses of the future, the concept is that we'll just have distributed DC around the home. So there's a lot of work being done at the moment on what the interference model would look like if we did have distributed DC around the home, which will then drive new requirements for DC powered products. All of the product committees, so we have CISPR B, which is to do with industrial, scientific and medical equipment. We have CISPR F on lighting and household products, CISPR I on multimedia products, CISPR D on automotive products. Always work that they're doing either to remove ambiguity and maintain the standards that they have, or consider new use cases of products covered by the scope of their product. So things like wireless power transfer, for example, for automotive, as well as the power supply end being considered. And as we have more electrical products used in close proximity to each other, some of the work that's being done at the moment in the product committees is on either a rapid emission check, so if you've built an installation of various different bits of apparatus, bringing them together and just doing a check in situ, if you like, to make sure that the sum of all of these individual products doesn't exceed a level that could interfere with radio reception. That's some work, original work that's being done at the moment and may become a requirement in due course. Another one is on increased number of devices. So a little bit similar to what I've just talked about there, but just imagine that you've got an office. At the moment, we might do an emissions check on a PC, on a laptop, but the way that those are deployed, you'd have an office with lots of laptops in, or lots of displays, monitors, all these sorts of things. What does that do in aggregate? Is the noise for the electromagnetic noise floor coming up, and therefore what should we be doing about it? So that's some more work that's being done on that side as well. And then another topic, if you've tuned into one of our previous videos with myself and my colleague Michael Darby on industry updates, we have a lot of focus on radio modules. And CISPR standards are the standards that apply typically on a worldwide basis to the host equipment. And that host might have a radio module integrated into it. So what do? Do you ignore the emissions from the radio module when it's been integrated in, or do you cover that under the EMC requirements? And so there's been some work done within CISPR to standardize the wording that goes into these different publications and make sure fundamentally that it's covered. And so you'll see over the next year or two all of the CISPR publications being updated with some common wording, interpretations and requirements in terms of how you deal with these things when you're measuring and testing the products to those various different standards. So that's a quick update on CISPR. CISPR has just finished its plenary meetings for 2024. They're pretty much all held online this year. The plenary meetings are really where all the committees come together, get an understanding of what's going on, and then go away into their little different working groups and update the different documents that they're responsible for. So always work going on, yeah, just make sure that you tune back in as we give you a regular update on what's happening in that part of the world. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and speak to you next time. Thank you.